someone said something to me that was quite interesting as well, which was maybe there's an element of outpouring because of COVID.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But the irony there is, well, there's two. The first one is they prepped twice a year for the Queen's death, but they prepped for pandemic once every 6 to 8 years. So you're like,
and right. They didn't take on board the recommendations of Operation Cygnus or the other pandemic preparedness exercise.
But I bet you they did for the Queen.
Yeah, of course, they poured money into that. Yeah, absolutely.
Our money. It's all paid for our money. They poured our money, which some of us don't agree with. But we're told that if we don't agree with, even though they're using our money, we could be arrested.
It's even deeper than that for me, and you'll know this because you must have seen me talking about it ad nauseum in the groups we're in, Tam. But it's this like, it's this enforced sorrow, like, because I bitched about it on Twitter the other day, and one of my friends has literally fallen out with me now because I was like, my fucking gym is shut in for the 4 hours of the funeral playing. That is ridiculous. And he was like, oh, these people that complain about these things shutting down are the first people to talk about workers' rights. And now because they can't go and do their workout, they're selfish. And I was like, it's about the fact that I am being denied any option to not partake in this. I don't want to sit online whinging about how ridiculous I think this is. I want to go out and work out or go to the library or go for a coffee or go shopping. And I am literally forbidden from doing it because the state is like, no, you will do this. You will mourn this random stranger. And I'm like, okay, freedom of speech and all that.
Welcome everybody to the Sunday Roast. We have a sensational lineup of guests today. We have got David.
Hello everyone, my name is David, otherwise known as Davemoo, but you can also find me at Politically Enraged, which is my blog, usually frothing at the mouth about something stupid the Tory party have done. Join me in rage while I'm still alive.
And Max.
Hi guys, Max here from the Robespierre channel. I talk about British politics and Brexit in particular.
And Supertan.
Hi, I'm Supertanskii, and I make very angry videos about the Tories and the media and the royal family. Last thing you want is another one of them dead, because this will all happen again. Yes. Like, that's the last thing you want. You just want them all to live forever now.
Welcome to the United Islands of permanent mourning. 9 a.m, wake up, cry. 9:15, sob.
Well, he's charged us, what, 73, 74, so...
Yeah.
You should have a bit of a run, you know.
I couldn't find a pharmacy open around me. So if you need your meds, for whatever reason, you get mugged because the police aren't around, what are you meant to do?
I need to go and get some antibiotic tablets and an antibiotic shot, and I am not able to go until tomorrow because of all of this.
Yeah. And then you look at the backlog from the NHS because, you know, the Tories have shat on the NHS for so long. You've got people that are like awaiting really important appointments that are going to be pushed way back. Someone in my comments was saying that their dad's got skin cancer and he's not going to get an appointment out till November because of that it was supposed to be today. So that is a serious condition, and it's going to have like there was someone talking, I can't remember exactly who it was from LBC, from like, you know, a medical official saying it's because the backlog's so terrible. Like people think it's just one day, but it's not. Like, you have to kind of literally rebook hundreds of thousands, millions of appointments again into the next available slot. And the slots are like just taken up and taken up and taken up, and they're so far behind on their targets as it is. So we're the people that are suffering the real effects of this as ever.
The thing with it is, though, as well, as bad as that is, and that is bad, it's extremely bad, but the worst part of it is the people that are so happy to partake in it. I had so many people. I made a very critical video where I said, this is ridiculous. You cannot cancel people's cancer treatments for this. You cannot do it's obscene. And I got so many people being like, it's just one day. It's because of childcare. Blah, blah, blah. Oh, it's to partake in history. And I'm like, people's cancer appointments. Like, what don't you get about this? I understand the rhyme and reason between childcare and all of that, but this is like, as someone who's seen, as I mentioned in the video that I made, what happens when people's cancer care is not kept on a rigorous schedule because they die. Like, this is not okay. And so many people are just so happy to get involved in the theatrics of like this stupid British idea of, oh well, we've had it worse. We've had it worse before. What about during COVID? I bet you didn't mind about lockdowns. Deadly virus that will make your lungs fill up with fluid. A stranger's funeral that's hundreds of miles away.
Well, yeah, exactly. And you saw all of them filing past, ignoring the COVID memorial to go and pay their respects to a billionaire that's laying there. And that is like not just disrespecting all those people that have died as a consequence of the government's terrible approach. And also, you're talking about childcare. If the government actually, you know, provided proper help or in that respect. But yeah, they were just filing past, ignoring it. And what I see as a real duty and a service are people that during a deadly pandemic went to work with fucking bin liners on to try and save people's lives. That to me is service, not shaking someone's hand or opening a fucking co-op. So,
or changing rules and regs so you don't pay tax.
Precisely. So you can just transfer all your wealth, all your power onto the next person that just inherits.
And we need every penny we can get. I'm going to play devil's advocate. I always try and do a little bit of like looking at...
Oh, no!
I'm going to say, what if it had been a regular bank holiday, shops had stayed open, gyms had stayed open, and it was all paid for by the Crown? Do you think that would have affected it?
Preferred it if they'd put their hands in their pockets for once. Yeah, that would have been nice. I suppose that would have taken the edge off it a bit. But how are they going to make up for all the loss of earnings when our economy is on its arse? How are they going to make up for? Because it's projected to be billions, isn't it, that we've lost in revenue?
Yes. So I could say if it was a regular bank holiday instead of this Christmas version that we've had, I could say that the shops were being open to sell products to those people in the street, which you argue could have made money. Now, there's a flip side to that as well, because that means that all the money is being pumped into London. And on top of that, it means those surrounding areas haven't got that money. It's just been transferred into... It's not great in London at the moment. I was on Clerkenwell Street last week on a Thursday night. I was shocked at the number of empty office spaces and pubs, and that's like city centre. What about you, David? What do you think then?
It's interesting, but it's funny that you mentioned that because I've been doing a lot of reading about microeconomies in the UK, and obviously London is the biggest microeconomy that we have because that's where all the money goes. And when it comes to pumping money or not pumping money into London, I've got to be frank, and I'm not trying, this isn't a read of people that are from London or people that love London or anything, because obviously you love where you come from, you love the place where you move to, whatever. That's absolutely fine. But London continues to steam ahead, and it continues to capitalise on its already extremely progressive, status. It gets money just thrown at it from everywhere in the UK.
Russia. And
so it can, well, I mean, yeah, and I wasn't even talking about the illicit stuff, but you can't deny that, can you? But London continues, I look at the country as two steam trains, and there's London and the rest of the country. London continues to get more energy efficient, it continues to get faster, it's got more money thrown at it, it's just better connected. So it's already moving faster than the rest of the country, and we're struggling to keep up. Everything just continues to get worse, and the rest of the UK continues to kind of move slower behind London as it is. And one thing that I would really appreciate, which I just don't know whether it would happen or not, is the decentralising of power from London. Whether that's that we have multiple parliaments across the UK and we start holding sessions around other areas, specifically so that the government that's supposedly so in touch with the nation that they keep doing things that we hate can see what the status quo is. Do you know what I mean? Like Liz Truss, I'm a Leeds girl. When was the last frigging time you were anywhere near here? Because I guarantee you my ears would start melting off my fucking head if you came. Come and see what the status quo is like in Leeds. I live on the very, very edge of the city centre. There's the city centre right there. And over there is the council estate where I nearly got murdered in 2010 because a guy pulled a knife on me to steal my phone. It's literally as simple as affluent, terribly poor. The way that the UK is set up is to continuously pile money into London. So I would very much appreciate it if we just stopped doing that, and at least just to let the rest of the country catch up. All this levelling up stuff, where's that?
It's not going to happen, apart from Northern Ireland.
Yeah.
Wonder why. The point was, if it had been a bank holiday and it had been paid for by the Crown, would you have had such an issue?
Ultimately, I do understand both points, and however I feel about the monarchy is regardless of how other people are going to feel, and the way that I feel about it isn't going to change their minds. So would I have partaken? No, I'd still have tried to do my own thing. But if other people wanted it, I would have as Tan said, I would have appreciated it if they'd have put their goddamn hands in their pockets into their unfathomable wealth and swallowed some of the cost. Because tragic as it is that you've lost your mum had more money in her fucking tiny little handbag than I'm ever going to earn in my entire life. So, you know, cough it up, Charles.
And no inheritance tax that could have gone towards it as well, which is interesting.
The ludicrousness that is not applied to the richest amongst us. If that doesn't spell out the status quo of England, in particular in the UK, as a larger exhibit, that the richest people pay less back into the economy, into a tax that affects us, it inevitably affects us all. The only things that are certain are death and taxes. Well, that's certain. I'm not fucking sure about this one. Like,
yeah, that's a you've completely skewered an old age adage of the two things that are guaranteed in life: death and tax. Not for one family. Max, so how do you look at this? I assume there's an extent of Ireland pushed the monarchy out. You live in Italy. And so there's like an added sense of you being a bit more distant and sort of viewing in. And it's interesting as well, your white top is almost making you have that like head from Red Dwarf.
Holly.
Holly?
Yeah.
Okay, got that.
Oh, Holly.
You're not Rimmer.
No,
Rimmer has. Sorry, Holly is the
one. Yeah.
Everybody's dead, Dave.
My dad, not my dad, I can't remember who it is. One of my friends had a drink with the woman that played Holly. Said she was really nice.
People say in my videos that I remind them of Holly off of Red Dwarf.
That's the highest compliment.
I take it as a compliment. I take it they're not referring to the man.
So
Holly.
yeah. So
Holly 3.
So I actually did a video recently on the Irish media's coverage of the funeral, and what they did was they sent over two journalists to cover it from 10 a.m. And I actually said in the video, I said, yeah, well, you know, the media probably would cover any funeral. If it been a US president, they would have sent somebody over to cover that as well. And I actually got a lot of backlash on the video about it, because people were saying, no, this is a foreign monarch. We shouldn't be covering this. We shouldn't be wasting taxpayer money to send journalists over to London to cover this. I think it should have been covered because it's an event. Now, the 10 days of mourning, no, but something happened, so I think it should have been covered, which is going to piss off a lot of people watching this, obviously. But you said the Italian angle, not exactly Italian, but I don't know if you guys seen in the media. I think it was Channel 4 and BBC covered it. They interviewed the Crown Prince of Greece.
Yeah.
And it was like, he's not there. Greece is a republic. What the hell are you doing?
We know that the new king has very strong opinions on things, not least the climate. I wonder whether you hope that he might weigh in on Greece's behalf on the return of the Elgin marbles.
I think that is something that is...
Why are you interviewing this guy? Why don't you, interview some, I don't know, fish seller in Athens or something? He'd have a better opinion on this. It's completely pointless. And the fact that they called him the Crown Prince of Greece, I think was extremely insulting. Why? First of all, why did they mistake his name? And then why did they actually interview him?
Well, say it with me, everyone. Avtos Denina Vasilios, which means he is not a prince.
Bravo.
He's
I
not like...
won't repeat it.
It drove me really mad, did that, because according to what I'd read, they'd said that optionally any media that was covering them could use their royal affixations if they wanted to, but it's not protocol. It's very much a choice. So they chose to say that that's what he was, and he is not. They abolished the monarchy. We are being lied to by our media. This isn't like this is literal mistruth. We are being lied to by our media.
What's new?
What is he then? Is he just a random person in the public?
No, he was part of a family that was the monarchy, but they abolished the monarchy. So he was a prince, but you can't be the crown prince of a country that doesn't have a monarchy. He's the crown prince of nothing. He's a person. Yeah. Well, yeah, that's what most places call him. Like the last time he was interviewed, he was called ex prince whatever of Greece, which is fine, but he's not a prince. He's an ex prince.
Yeah, it's former. He's the artist formerly known as Prince.
If you consider Greece's history as well, it's not like, they just the royal family went away and then they had a democracy. There was a little period in between where there was a little problematic period in between, and what was the role of the monarchy during the military dictatorship. There's a lot of I'm no expert on Greek history, but I found it extremely offensive for the Greeks that they would describe this guy as a crown prince. He's not.
Well, considering it's the country that invented democracy, or the Western format of it, we've had 2 civil wars over having a monarchy. Most people recognise the first one, which I also find quite interesting. There is a statue of Cromwell outside Parliament. Cromwell killed the first Charles, got his head cut off. Is it appropriate to have that statue if you're not allowed to go and say down with the king? Is it actually acceptable to say not my king when a load of British people have sacrificed their lives for us to have a democracy, which I'm not hearing anywhere in the media? No one has brought that up. But the second civil war over the monarchy, the British monarchy, was the American Revolution, which isn't talked about, or I've not heard anyone talk about so far, because they literally said, we don't want a monarchy, we're not being represented, we're being dictated to by governments. There were other interpretations of why the Americans decided to split, but the mainstream version is they didn't want a monarchy, they wanted a republic, they wanted democracy, and it created a civil war because it was British versus British. It wasn't American versus British because America didn't exist at that point. So it's really interesting that we've actually got a substantial history of executing or actually going to war with kings to get rid of them. And yet there is this thing that's now it's almost like it's been reestablished over centuries of the monarchy's all right. Yeah, and this will be my final point. Diana came out and said they're horrible people.
I'd like to be a queen of people's hearts, in people's hearts, but I don't see myself being queen of this country. I don't think many people would want me to be queen. Actually, when I say many people, I mean the establishment that I'm married into, because they've decided that I'm a non-starter.
Why do you think they've decided that?
Because I do things differently, because I don't go by a rule book, because I lead from the heart, not the head. And albeit that's got me into trouble in my work, I understand that. But someone's got to go out there and love people and show it.
And everyone seems to have forgotten that. And everyone's suddenly gone, oh, they're great. It's like, wait a minute. Everyone seemed to be siding with Diana, that they were horrible people. There was no love there. They didn't treat the public rights.
The Queen, who is staying at Balmoral, seems to freeze. In the morning, the family attends their private church.
The service in the local church lasted an hour, but not once was the princess mentioned by name.
The crowds gather around Buckingham Palace, looking and waiting for a sign from their Queen. After 5 days of deafening silence from the Queen, all over Britain, grief turns to anger.
The papers were very outspoken. It was, "Your people need you, Mom," was one headline.
The flag at half-mast. Definitely. Should have been done before now.
Really can't understand that thing. And I think it's a big disgrace for the royal family not to do that.
I think a big part of it's the media. If you look at how the media was in the 90s, they were a lot happier, or like the kind of like just before and around the time that Blair came to power, etc. They were a lot happier to cover the monarchy in a negative way, weren't they? They were quite happy to. There was actual press accountability on both teams, it seemed, in terms of the political side of things. But no, it's been really disturbing watching, because you were saying, oh, nobody's talking about this. They're not going to. Like the broadcasting, there are people saying that they haven't seen broadcasting like this since they were in the Soviet Union like years ago. Like there are people actually saying that. And I don't think we've been seeing, the coverage of someone's death I think we've been seeing a fight for survival of the monarchy, and people kind of perpetrating this one view, which is it's all great, it's all fine. Oh, a little bit there about protesters. Oh, aren't they silly? Look at them, they got hauled off. There's no democratic coverage even in the media of this. And anyone that's trying to speak out and say anything about how unfair it is, how undemocratic it is, how terrible it is that they're not paying tax on their inheritance like everybody else, they're just told to have respect for these people. There's no other voice allowed on the subject. Like, I've nearly had both of my Twitter's nearly been, my TikTok account's nearly been destroyed by people just mass reporting all of my things because I put up like 3 videos that were anti, or just taking the piss a little bit out of the situation. There's just no other opinion that's allowed on this, and that is so disturbing to me. And what's more disturbing is that the news is supposed to be there to inform us. It's not informing us. It's not providing balance. I've not seen balance anywhere over the last 10 days, apart from the only place that might have had a smidge of balance would be Channel 4.
Oh, that's not fair. We're a channel.
You're on broadcasters. You're not on the telly.
Not
what
yet.
do you think this is?
You're not on the big telly. But but the thing that really concerns me is the fact that the way that power closes rank, like power protecting power. You've got the government, royalty, the police. They kind of close ranks to protect offenders within their own ranks. And then you look at things like, if you dare to bring up the fact that the Queen paid £12 million to pay off Andrew's rape accuser. Oh no, you're not allowed to talk about that. You're not allowed, and the Met refused to investigate him over that, just like they refused to investigate Downing Street over Partygate. And Cressida Dick's like, no one's above the law. Well, those two sets of people are, aren't they? So who do they serve and protect?
If you personalise it, it's very hard to argue. So if it was their daughter, if it was their son that had been sexually assaulted by Prince Andrew, do you think they'd have that? And I've not found anyone that can argue that. Interestingly, I won't say who, but I know someone who said, look, my gran died this year. I didn't get a letter from the Queen, so why would I give a stuff about her? Which is quite a flippant thing to say, but also it's like, well, there's no personal connection there. Should there, you've only ever seen this person from distance, and generally, even if you do see them in person, or especially on formal occasions, they don't even break into a real conversation with you. You're not allowed to even start the conversation with them, which is just
as well. You don't know what they're really like. You don't really know what Otto English did a really great obituary in which he actually spoke about how little we know about the Queen. And these people are undemocratically, they think they're sent there by God, right? They're undemocratically in their place, and they have clandestine chats with our ministers and our figureheads of our government that we don't know anything about what they're talking about. They can be talking about fucking anything in those meetings. And they just see themselves as there as an example to us. Well, I don't think that, covering up horrible crimes is an example to us. And who decides that they're an example to us?
If we look at the BBC, for example, did the BBC have any Republicans on to counter? Like when it came to climate change, you'd have both sides. When it came to Brexit, you'd have both sides. But when it came to the monarchy, no, just continuous footage of the mourning, continuous footage of the queues, and was there anyone actually not even having a Republican on, but anyone critical? And what I think was interesting was the New York Times ran an article a few days ago, and the amount of abuse from politicians and from commentators in the UK. How dare they criticize this spectacle? How dare they say anything against it? But as you're saying, they were closing ranks to protect the monarchy, to protect the institution, government, police, the BBC, and the royals themselves.
Do you want to know what the biggest irony of this has all been for me as well? To bring in something that I do talk about a lot. In the UK, as an LGBT plus person, I have to have my experience, my life, my safety, my legitimacy examined and criticised and insulted and picked apart. And it's all done with this balance, like fairness, by the British press. Like, people are allowed to go on TV and be like, well, I mean, they're grooming people, aren't they? They're grooming children into accepting and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, so me existing and saying, let's try and make children less hateful so more children don't have my upbringing where I'm terrified to talk about myself, that's grooming. But it's not grooming to force a 13-year-old to stand in a queue for 15 hours to walk past a box. It's not grooming to be like, why aren't you upset? Why aren't you upset about this? That's not grooming, really. This is the reality that we live in now, where being like, I'm a person and I deserve equity, that's grooming, but it's not grooming to be like, respect these people you don't know.
So how does that equate with you when I mentioned the Cromwell thing? A bunch of British people sacrificed their lives for us to have democracy.
It drives me insane. It's like the biggest part of it for me is the pure hypocrisy. I am tired. I am literally tired to the point of tears of being told by people, well, it's my freedom of speech. It's my freedom of speech to say that people like you are disgusting. Oh, okay, well, I don't like the monarchy. That's disgusting. People like you should be imprisoned. But freedom of speech, though, right, Deborah? Like, what the fuck is this? Like, if you believe in freedom of speech, I should be able to say what the fuck I want about the monarchy.
Yes.
I'm not saying I'm going to do anything bad, but I should be allowed to be critical publicly of the monarchy and the institution for which it stands, and all of the atrocities that we know the monarchy has been involved with, which I won't go into because there's too much.
There is too much.
I should be allowed to talk about those things without fear of reprisal, especially from the law. And if you believe that you should be allowed to say these things about people like me, or about my trans friends, or about people of colour, or about women, which just seems to be getting worse and worse. I dread to think what's coming with that. If you should be allowed to say those things, I should be the fuck allowed to say what I want to say about the monarchy. And if you don't see the disconnect there, then perhaps maybe it's time to let the scales fall from our eyes and talk about the fact that no one is pro free speech. Everyone is pro the fucking speech that they agree with.
Which is very similar to many of the dictatorships that we've seen in history. You can't criticize the leader. The leader is pure. The leader is good.
Yeah,
all hail the lava lamp.
It's like the
all hail Hypnotoad.
But no, you're absolutely right. It's really disturbing. I mean, I think everyone deserves to have dignity in death, right? And if they'd made it a day or two, fair enough. History, fine, no worries. But the problem is that not everyone gets dignity in death in this country. You've got people like my nan who was laying on her bathroom floor for 8 hours waiting for an ambulance. You've got the people that are lucky enough to get an ambulance dying in them outside hospitals. You've got people in a queue being handed blankets and food to be kept warm, and homeless people 10 yards away, like sleeping on the streets. But because those people are in that queue conforming to what the state wants you to do, they're looked after, they're fine.
It's Pavlovian.
It's so disturbing. And I don't understand, like, I'm sorry, but I've looked at the way that people have been fawning, and I have just thought, have some self-respect, like question what is happening here, because I don't think any of them really think beyond what they've just always been told about it. Like, I don't think they really think deeply about it. And I found myself having contempt for them. And I don't like that, because I know that that's not the way to kind of make people understand, is to have that contempt. But I've just had it rammed down my throat for 10 days. Like, as I was saying before we filmed, I'm just so angry and just sick of it all. It's not fair. None of this is just or fair. Them prospering relies on us being unequal as humans. Yeah. There has to be this class, this status, this hierarchy for them to maintain their position, and we have to be the underlings. And as I said, I'm not a subject, I'm a citizen, and I will not accept being seen as less than someone that just for a lottery of birth has become a king.
The Black Lives Movement was about taking the knee. And Dominic Raab came out and said, oh, it's some Game of Thrones thing. And I'm going, well, if we've been enforced to have our status as subjects, and that means we've got to bend the knee.
Taking the knee thing, which I don't know, maybe it's got a broader history, but seems to be taken from the Game of Thrones, feels to me like a symbol of subjugation, subordination.
Colin Kaepernick, I think that's how you pronounce his surname, he had a choice. We don't. We've had no say in this. It's just, this is how it is. You are going to blame Disney. Those frickin' movies showing about princesses and princes all having a whale of a time and all being perfect in everything else. It's just it's like that's the which one? Sleeping Beauty. Can you guess what the prince's name was?
Charming.
Philip, wasn't it? No.
Philip. And I'm going, is there a connection there? is there a link? Well, interestingly, there's always those weird rumors about Disney being, somehow connected to the Nazis. Well, interestingly, Philip was. I've got photos of him in Nazi parades. And it's really interesting as well, because I'm getting a lot of people coming to me and saying, oh, you're so biased. And it's like, well, you watch the mainstream media. I mean, today was the last straw for me, because I was like, look, someone's died. It's really sad. I can see there's an outpouring. I'm going to keep my mouth shut. But don't put it in my face. Don't control me.
Can I ask a question? Do you think? No. Like, I'm not maybe not the Queen herself, but do you think the royal family would mourn you if you died, or your family if you died? Of course not. But then why should we mourn them? But the response from many people is, but they were more important. They were, as Tan said, they were on another level. Why? And there's this idea that they're godlike, which is extremely like, for me, I was just thinking about this during the weekend, and I was thinking, people are mourning the Queen. They're not mourning Elizabeth Windsor. Like, Elizabeth Windsor was a person. The Queen was her job. So you can imagine if people mourned your job. When you died, they mourned you about, he was a wonderful shelf packer. So we just think about the shelf packing. It was wonderful how he packed the shelf. He put the boxes. Like, wouldn't you think yourself as more than that? I'm not. Maybe it's a strange angle to come at. Shouldn't we mourn the person, not the title or the job? And it's quite sad. I found it actually quite sad that people were saying she was a wonderful queen. She was a wonderful queen. But what about her as an individual?
Well, it's difficult to know, because
we don't know. We have absolutely no. Now we know a bit.
And there is info. There's biography.
I did a video where I was talking about the glue holding the UK together, and many people focus on the royal family, but also the Prime Minister. And if you don't have a Prime Minister who's bothering to go to Scotland, the Union is in serious trouble. Doesn't care about Scotland. But also, if the Prime Minister doesn't go to Leeds, or doesn't go to Exeter, doesn't go to Manchester, this is also damaging society as well.
I think biographers, as you say, do it because they've got to keep it all looking kind of like cushy, haven't they? They've got to make sure that they come out of it looking golden for the money, and also to again further the monarchy. She used to punch horses, are they? Or she used to kick the dog. They were like, oh yeah, she had like she once saw a horse, and just seemed to understand what she was saying, and she just summoned it over. That's how they're gonna portray her. So and that's why the Otto English obituary was so clever, because it showed that we don't actually know anything about who she really was, and those people around her are so sworn to loyalty and their positions. I mean, like, one of her ladies in waiting, I think it was, never married out of her duty to the Queen, so her entire life was just devoted. And how sad is that as well? That is just, and you look at the staff, the loyal staff to Charles at Clarence House, who have been there, some of them for 40 years, just told, like, some of them said that they were shaking in shock, that they'd been told halfway through one of the services, for one of the thousands of services for the Queen, that they were going to be facing possible redundancy and just losing their job. These are people that are being turfed out during a cost of living crisis that may have live on site. So
like Thanos.
Thanos did.
Yeah, he Thanos it. He just
Thanos.
Yeah, Thanos from Marvel.
I thought you were saying like a magic spell, like in a weird way. I don't know why.
Like, could you imagine having Stephen Hawking's kid in charge of physics, just because his dad was? I don't even know. Like, it's really interesting as well, because you look at football management. I don't know many kids. I don't think I know any that have succeeded their parents at being a better manager if their parents are at the top of the game. Alex Ferguson's, I don't think so. There's Darren, Brian Clough, and Nigel. They were never on the same path.
Even actors, you have the children of actors, but they always have to demonstrate some sort of ability. It's not just automatic.
But you wouldn't have a mathematician. You wouldn't have a doctor, as we were saying.
Surgeon.
Could you imagine? They learned to operate using the game Operation, and now they're fully qualified because their parents are great.
But also think about it. It's even worse than that. Is they can't be fired. Can you imagine that you had a surgeon who became a surgeon because their parents were surgeons, and then they fucked up, and then they're like, okay, we need to let this person go. No, you can't let them go because they inherited the position.
Let him loose on heart until he dies. Like,
Eric, this is the 17th person that you've killed.
Please stay at home. No, I love this job.
Can you imagine him though? But if he didn't want to do it, he's just weeping, just trying to do surgery properly. Just like, oh, please live this time. Just tears rolling down his face. I don't want to kill another one.
But then you'd have this is going a bit insane, but you'd have the people around them going, "You're doing a wonderful job. You're doing a wonderful job."
Yeah. Come on, it's your duty. It's your duty.
What if the patient was more qualified than the surgeon? And they were having to walk them through it.
It's even more layered and annoying than that, though, because as an atheist and an English Republican and someone that doesn't like the government, I wrote a piece that I put on my blog about this, and I wrote a tweet about it as well, which was, God that you don't believe in, save the king who you don't support, to help form a government that got 43% of the vote, which translates to an 80-seat majority, which means they have an overwhelming position to pass legislation that most of the country doesn't agree with factually. This is the unreality that we live in, where it's imagination, ridiculously rich people that have done nothing to earn their station and just are, above a bunch of people that used technicality to enact power. It's layer upon layer of just being people just shitting directly onto your face in the UK.
Yeah. It's cloud cooking land as well. It all just relies on people believing that person is anointed with the oil to become this kind of divine being, almost like a godlike status to set this example to all the rest of the other people. It's just bizarre.
I'm sorry, but in the nicest way I can put this, looking at Charles's weird mottled skin and his fucking hooky fingers, there's no way that man's superior to me in any way. If anything, look at those sexy little slender things. Tell me that that's not the hand of a fucking king compared to that weirdo.
I bet he's fucking great at pushing buttons, if you need to start a button push or something.
That's probably why he's in such a bad mood. He's in the royal lift, oh, Camilla, I've done it again.
All I can do is dial. All I can do in life.
It's that bit from The Simpsons. Your fingers are too fat.
He's one of those big. He's like one of those big hands at a football game or something, isn't he? What are they?
To order a dialing rod, mash the keypad now.
In Norway, they had an expression. It's interesting you said, "I think I'm better than the king." I think it's called umberglad. It's a tradition in Norway where you were able to challenge the authority of anyone who said they were in charge, including royalty. And you could challenge them to combat.
Oh, wow.
Now, that is a term that still exists. Now, that's within Viking tradition for their monarchs. You can't just say you're king, and if someone disagrees with you, right, outside, let's have it out. Whoever survives, they get to be king. Well, I guess it'd be now with a 73-year-old.
Can you imagine me just laying out an octogenarian and just casually placing a crown on my head and be like, right.
It'd be worse if it was the Queen just nutting.
She would have kicked my ass. I know she would. She secretly, I bet she was a right fighter.
Yeah.
I'm going to take you the fuck out, bitch.
Well, William the Conqueror was Norman, so Norwegian, and on top of that, I think his grandfather was Viking. To the Oliver Cromwell statue. Why is that outside Parliament? Why is no one again talking about the fact that a bunch of British people sacrificed their lives for us to have a democracy?
But why is there a statue of Oliver Cromwell and not of Guy Fawkes?
Well, Guy Fawkes, that's down to Catholicism.
But he
tried to kill. Okay. So it's because of democracy, not because of the king.
He wanted to, when he was trying to blow up Parliament, it was specifically to prevent them from was it solemnising Protestantism, or however you say it.
Yeah, there was this ongoing thing since Henry VIII between the monarchs about Catholicism and Protestantism. It kept toing and froing quite a bit.
It was more ecclesiastic than it was to do with democracy, because it was just a formal thing. But he was upset that the politicians had accepted that they were going to create this, just magically create this different subshoot of religion. That's just from memory, but
so it was about the sky gods, essentially. It was about. He liked that particular one more.
Help me, Jeebus!
What you were saying about the taking power with violence, there was that woman on Sky News, wasn't it, the other day, who was going, there's not really a thirst for getting rid of the monarchy. Otherwise, there would be a revolution. And it was just like, someone was just like, hang on a minute. You'd like Sky News just talk about having a revolution. But she was like saying, oh, it's a democracy until we overthrow it, right? And I suppose that is true. But how is there ever going to be a thirst against it when there's no dissenting opinion allowed or permitted over the course of literally 10 days? It's all just literally just buttering, well, not literally, but it's figuratively buttering the asses of the monarchy and the system and keeping the wheels in motion, keeping everyone on board with it, keeping everyone nice and indoctrinated and, compliant with it all.
Russian Revolution and French Revolution both were cited because of high inflation, high food prices, not enough food. Again, it's not been in the news, but because of climate change, crop yields in the West are down anywhere, depending on the crop, between 2 and 30%. Olives 30%, potatoes 2%. So wheat, I think, is 10%. That's the time to start. That'll kick stuff off.
But I think people are more angry with the government than with the monarchy, and I think going forward, support for the monarchy is going to decrease. Charles can't fill the shoes of Elizabeth. So I think after the mourning period, after the funeral, I think it's going to become much more difficult for the monarchy. If William had been put in place, perhaps things would be slightly different. But Charles is not popular, and I think it's really going downhill. But I think people are going to be much more angry with the government than with the monarchy. But the monarchy is a very important part of society that needs to change.
We can see there are problems. I mean, we were talking about the split all over the country at the moment in terms of economics. The split between North, South, Scotland, Wales, London, Northern Ireland. How it's been very much ignored that Northern Ireland is having a boom, and that's all down to Brexit. So then I'm going to ask the question: how's everyone finding Brexit?
You know what? The most frustrating part of it is that I don't even know how long is it? Was it like 5 years now, 6 years now? I've been told every day, like, Project for you, you're just mourning because you lost more and all of that. Objectively, using the gift of sight, you can see that Brexit has seriously hurt our finances. It's hurt our freedom. It's hurt our world standing. It's made us look fucking dumb. It's assisted in the erosion of democracy, because I get the feeling that the EU would probably intervene if one of its member states was like, so we're just going to restrict everyone's right to protest, yeah? All of these things. And it's just the balls deep irony of it all, of like, no unelected, blah, blah, blah. When did you vote for the monarchy? Sorry? They didn't. But the weirdest thing is that there's still people out there that just cannot, chemically cannot hear anything bad about Brexit. And I've gotten to the point where I actually almost feel sorry for them, because crossing that box was the biggest thing that they ever did. And it will be the biggest thing that they ever do. And so they've become that decision. There is nothing outside of it. Even today, yesterday I went to the Tesco's down the road and there was nothing on the shelves. No vegetables. There was no meat. There weren't even bags. I had to bring my shopping home in a fucking wine bag, which made me look like an alcoholic. And so I posted online, Tesco's barely had anything in. What the hell's going on? Genuinely just asking a question. And of course I got a lot of people going, it's Brexit, it's Brexit, it's Brexit. This one guy went down all of these comments going, it is factually not Brexit, blah, blah, blah. Do you know what his username started with? Doncaster Brexit.
Oh, wow.
I wonder if you're perhaps not looking at this from an objective point of view.
Could just be a bot, couldn't it?
It's more than likely, but it's just... The reason that it's so frustrating is we have demonstrably lost rights that I and a lot of other people wanted to keep, whether it was the right to free movement or, as I said, as an assistive thing, the right to protest, the right to free and fair elections, because they've now taken the electoral body into themselves, the right to be able to vote simply. We now have to have ID cards. etc., etc., etc. All of these things are like easily provably part and parcel of Brexit. And it was stuff that we talked about and we were told, shut up, that's what we've decided. And if it was free and fair, then fair enough. But is it not less than 5 days?
Well, I mean, this gets to really the elephant in the room, particularly for Britain, which is that, you know, Facebook facilitated illegal campaigning on the part of Vote Leave, which allowed them to cheat.
Well, that's an
and
allegation
win
as
the
well.
Referendum. Well, no, it's not an allegation, because actually, if you look at the Electoral Commission and the ICO reports, you know, the Vote Leave has been, you know, found to have committed unlawful acts, you know, that where that money went onto Facebook ads, right? You know, Facebook facilitated cheating in the referendum.
Well, let's
you know,
just say that's an allegation you're also making. I want to make the broader point.
Well,
about
you know what? These aren't allegations. Every time I come on to BBC, I always get stopped by saying these are allegations. We need to wait for a report. When the report comes out, the Electoral Commission found that Vote Leave broke the law. That's a fact.
Yes.
Vote Leave broke the law. That's a fact. That's not an allegation. Okay? Facebook facilitated that because they allowed these ads to go onto their platform using money that was unlawful.
Well, let me talk to you about a
broader
point.
Since we found out that Theresa May's government was told that it had been interfered with so fucking heavily that it wasn't even a free and fair bloody vote.
As I say, the true position is that the Prime Minister is entirely well aware of the notorious facts, I think, well, Lord Justice Haddon gave a description of them, of the well-publicised facts, electoral commission findings, fact of an appeal, police investigations, ICO, DCMS committees, all clear, publicly done and properly done. And it's perfectly obvious that the Prime Minister has decided to carry on.
MI6. Hungary, by the way, have just had sanctions put on them for their undemocratic approaches within the EU.
What voting system do they use again?
Oh God, Viktor Orban. Yes.
No. What type of voting system do they use?
Oh, I don't know. What is it? Is it
first past the post? Surprise!
Rock. Oh dear. But it's interesting that you bring that up. And Orban's obviously a nasty piece of work. I've had personal experience with one of his right-hand men who said some really racist stuff. Go ahead, Supertan. How's Brexit for you?
Shit. Davey's covered most of it, really. But just like people that are obsessive monarchists, they can never give you a reason why it's doing so great. I mean, they could be laying there in their Y-fronts in the dirt, trying to pick through seeds of grass to eat, and they'd be going, "It's fucking brilliant! It's great! I love this." But they can't.
Sovereignty.
I mean, it's so weird, and it was such a successful spin campaign by the government. It was just like, if they weren't arseholes, I'd think it was genius how they managed to make people believe this nonsense. And I know it was seeded for so many years, but it's also terrifying how many people have believed something that's just not true, that's objectively wrong, that can be proven to be a massive cock up. I mean, we've ripped up all our trade deals. We've got like nothing on the shelves, as Davey was saying. He was stuck with a bloody wine bag to bring shopping home in, which I'd have liked to have seen.
Like a fucking wino walking with fucking eggs hanging out of a fucking thing. It's not wine, I promise.
It's like that viral video. The only way I can describe it is like that viral video that's going around. I think it was in Scotland, of a man. It's like, oh, a man was walking along the street with a buggy on fire. It's like, oh, he's just taking his fire for a walk. That's what it feels like. That's what Brexit feels like. It doesn't make any sense. It was just it was created to make really rich people richer. We were just the little pawns doing the bidding, much like with the monarchy. We're just little subjects, just, down here, keeping them in their positions. It's ridiculous. It's nonsense. I'm so angry about Brexit.
I felt that for a lot of people, they felt that there is such a low point and no one was listening. That's why they had to vote for it, to get someone to pay attention.
Really? Do they think that they would have been given the vote if it was going to make a shit of difference to their lives, really, though? Because the thing is, they're like, oh, it's like, they saw it as like a punk expression. It was like peak establishment, what they were doing. They were just being conned. Like, did they really think that if it was going to be that much of a punk decision to kind of get back control, that they would have been given the choice?
It's only from a certain section of society that I've found and listened to that they have said they felt, and I'm not agreeing with the logic, but I'm saying that their logic was, if I get rid of the competition, people from abroad, I'll have a chance of getting that job. And I'm not saying that's right. I'm just saying that's part of the logic. And I can, to an extent, see why they're saying that. I'm not saying I agree with it. It's looking at it like a tactical view instead of a strategic. It's like, this is my situation here. How do I get myself work? Well, if I get rid of the opposition and create less competition, I'll get it. But what they then miss out on, well, then you're going to get rid of all sorts of other things. Like 10% of the NHS was EU. You're going to get rid of all the foreign investment. You're going to, you know, it was really interesting as well how the monarchy really actually compounded how Britain was viewed because the newspapers slagging off Meghan. And it was interesting as well because who the hell, has anyone heard them say anything about Andrew and the allegations? Like nothing during the whole of this.
Nope.
Like that kiddie, like literally came out on Edinburgh and sort of said, like, this is what's happened. This is why I'm doing it.
That powerful men should be allowed to commit sexual crimes and get away with it.
Rory.
But nothing's come out in the media about Andrew's actions. I'm going to bring it over to Max because I'm talking too much. What are your thoughts?
No, just on Brexit, well, there seem to be two benefits. One is more free ports. So that's great for everyone. And and even more extreme free ports than what Boris Johnson wanted to introduce. It would include actually lower personal taxes as well. So it's not just tax for businesses, but also personal taxes will be reduced if you live or operate within the free port. Not sure how that's going to work, but maybe people will pretend to live in the free port so they won't pay taxes, you know, on property taxes or whatever. And the other is, of course, the bankers' bonuses. So, and, you know, you even had, I don't remember what his name was, one of the members of the House of Lords came out and said, yeah, this is wonderful. It's not very popular with the public, but it's a wonderful thing. It's going to encourage all these bankers to come to London, and they're going to create jobs or something. they're going to have so much money that it's going to trickle down to people, you know, ordinary people, you know, like it's always done, you know.
I can't remember who it was, but I saw someone talking about that whole thing that Kwarteng had said about the bankers' bonuses. And his actual words, as far as I'm aware, were, it will really boost the economy of London. And I was like...
the city.
Are you fucking joking me again? Like, well, he actually said boost the economy of the city, which we all know is referential to London, but also to the city economics of banking. But the frustration with this, like, let's uncap people's bonuses is those people already earn an exorbitant amount of money. Exorbitant. They are part of the 5%. They're earning more than the fucking MPs. So what physically, what is it, what work is it that they do that renders them, like, eligible for this bonus? Because as far as I'm aware, banking is mostly maths, but also when you're in that kind of banking, when it's capital or expenditure or whatever, it's about connections. So you could be a greasy, moronic freakazoid who's very lucky and just be like, oh, thank God, if I'd have lost that, I'd have been screwed. Well, got my £700,000 bonus. Like,
yeah, but it seems actually more political than economic, because there was a way for the banks to get around this by just paying people higher wages. So they were able to. So it wasn't actually necessary to remove this. So I see this as, as a shout out to the people who donate to the party. Look at what we're doing for you. It's not actually going to really help them because there's a loophole, they can get round it. But it's just to see, we're on your side. So remember that at the next election.
Give us a few donations because we don't have enough from Russia and the.
And the guy also the head of the NHS who donated loads and loads and loads of money to the Conservative Party. I mean, this is the thing. Like, there's that guy that said when people rob banks, they get put in jail. When bankers rob people, they get bonuses, which is really massively true. It's because they go to the right schools. It's because they go to the schools with their mates. Their mates are Tory MPs. The Tory MP mates give them loopholes. Whereas if people just paid, like corporations, bankers, the monarchy paid their taxes, we'd be better off as a country, and we wouldn't be having like really shocking conditions and people in poverty, considering how advanced we're supposed to be economically. We wouldn't have those problems. But
we literally need the money. We literally need the money. and they won't give it, and they're actually setting it up so we won't get it.
This is the problem that we have. Like, I jokingly tweeted this, not tweeted, I put this on Instagram this morning. News of Politics had posted, scrapping the national insurance rise will save the poorest household an estimated 63p a month. And I put, can't wait to save up for a month to buy 1 pack of super noodles with my 63p. Cheers, Liz, baby. But it's like, as much as that's kind of funny, like, the issue with it is, and this is the thing that I just don't understand, like, because as I've grown, I've started to become more interested in learning about socialism and about like how it would work, could work, might work, whatever. But I don't know where I sit on any scales anymore because everything's just so up in the air. But I don't understand how people who can claim to be staunch capitalists can do capitalism so badly. If you want a booming economy where there's loads of money coming into the country, pay people money and pay poor people more money, because if you give a rich person money, they're like, better put that in the offshore Caymans account so it doesn't get taxed. Whereas if you give a poor person money, they're like, right, I'll redo my house, so all that money goes to a decorator. Or they'll be like, I'll go and get my hair cut, so it goes to the local hairdresser. Or they'll go and buy new clothes, so it goes to Primark. But let's not talk about that. But
it goes to the Cayman Islands, does it?
Like, it goes back into the economy. So if you want a booming economy, give poor people more money. Ergo, tax richer people who aren't even going to fucking notice. But instead, they come up with economic plans where they're like, let's take all the poor people's money and give it to these corporations that haven't been building energy infrastructure for the last 15 years because it's worked so well so far. The only thing the Conservatives are conserving is the fucking blood clot that's forming in my heart through stress.
Well, I mean, it's interesting as well, because I assume they're expecting that money to come back to them in donations, which then brings us on to another nice segue. But Max, I can see you wanted to say something.
No, is it about reinforcing class divide? Because we need this buffer zone between the very rich and the very poor, and we can keep pushing more and more people into that side, but we need to maintain this difference, so that there is a reason for people to donate to the party. I think it's not even just capitalism; it's pure class divide here.
Survival of their own survival, again, like with the monarchy.
But the more they push it, the more they force people into warm banks or food banks. I think it will eventually break. Sorry, Alex. Yeah.
It feels like it's got to get worse before it gets better.
I do wonder about that whole thing, like this, because like how long, in the nicest way I could say this about all of us on like the centre to the left and then the mid left and the blah blah blah, how long have we all collectively been going, the tide is turning, any day now? Do you know what? I'm getting my shoes on. Well, they're not on. I've got them out of the cupboard. Well, they're not out of the cupboard. I've laced them up. Well, I bought some new laces on Amazon and they're coming next week. Like, what does it take? Literally, I feel like I'm going to be like stood with the fucking Gestapo on my neck going, cry harder about the Queen. And I'll be like, any day now. Like, it's not
It really has helped them. We all knew that when Queen Elizabeth died, it was going to be incredibly difficult to deal with. And we all knew that to some extent it would help the current government that are in place. I don't hate the Queen. I think it's cool that she waited until Johnson was out the door. I don't think she had a choice. I don't think she was like just holding on.
Do you think they were Weekend at Bernie's in her the whole way through his tenancy? Hello, Your Majesty. Hello. Oh, that was so disrespectful. I'm going to prison.
I love it. Trust. You should be allowed to say. If you're not allowed to say that, then free speech isn't a thing. Trust. Doing terribly. The woman, I didn't think there was anyone that had less charisma than Theresa May, but
they found her.
But they found her. She's like, I described her as being like a broken Siri when she did her speech for the Queen earlier on. It was like, thou haveth. Like she sounds like a human Geiger counter. There's nothing there, nothing behind the eyes. No one's gonna want her. So I think we're going to get a Labour government in next, because for God's sake, I don't think even the Tories want to win the next one, because they'll have to Labour are just going to be inheriting a massive mess. And then I reckon we'll probably, get 5 years, they'll blame it all on us, and then they'll possibly get in again. I don't know. That's the worst case scenario. But
little news story that's broken that hasn't been talked about. Liz Truss's chief of staff worked for a company called CT Group, and CT Group have just got in a lot of doo-doo, which they're not commenting on, with the FBI. So there was a Venezuelan banker who put money through CT Group, then put the money to the governor of Puerto Rico at the time. And it was understood that that money was being given in exchange for the governor of Puerto Rico to make sure that the banker's bank didn't get investigated in Puerto Rico. The FBI have taken a very dim look on this, and they've started investigating. But of course, Liz Truss's chief of staff was in charge of global operations for the CT Group, which means that her chief of staff is being investigated by the FBI. But it also turns out that Venezuelan banker has given 500k to the Tory party. But that's not even it. That's not even it. It turns out, and their defense was for the Russian money that they were getting from Russian oligarchs deeply connected with Putin, was that they had a British passport. That was their argument. Turns out this guy doesn't have a British passport, which means that money has been deposited illegally into the Tory accounts. And you're like, wow, you guys are in deep doo-doo. Thoughts on this, because you all look shocked. But it's like, this is a Tory.
Hearing about it, I read about it a couple of days ago. I tweeted about it, and I was just like, she's definitely continuing Johnsonism. But as I said, even he buttered us up a little bit. Even he kind of eased us in. She's just literally going tits out straight into full out wanton corruption, choosing absolute fucking nutters as her chief of staff. Well done, Liz. Well done. You know, who's going to beat that in their first month?
It's like she looked at fucking Chris Pincher and was like,
right,
sex pervert, that is a disgrace. Let me show you how it's done.
Didn't she refuse to hire or appoint a ethics advisor?
Yeah, well, she's not refused. She just said that she's not going to create the position. It's just not going to be a thing. But I mean, who needs an ethics advisor when you don't know what ethics are?
Did you look at the donations, like from Shell? It wasn't like Liz was affiliated with Shell. So was Priti Patel taking like huge donations back in, I think that was April. It's hard to tell because the list of their like crimes are like, it's like War and Peace. You have to
literally somewhere in this house, I have a notepad that is just filled, almost full, with weird shit that Priti Patel's done since she left university. It's like
Patel.
Honestly, it's like the grimoire of political evil. If you open it on the wrong page, tendrils come out at you. It's fucking
like
ridiculous.
The Ring.
Honestly, did you know that she used to work for a tobacco company and she was involved in quieting down lawsuits against malfeasance for tobacco? It's like and this woman's in government and she's like, we care deeply about the British people. It's like the evil Mr. Men are in charge in this country at the minute. It's fucking like Little Miss Bitch like comes up to the podium and she's like, we hate poor people. Like,
oh, it's crazy. It just gets worse.
But it gets better and it gets sadder because we're done. So we've got to say goodbye. Thank you, everyone. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Welcome, everybody, to another Sunday Roast. We have...
I'm sorry. Don't be sitting.
I look like, I look like that thing out of Family Guy, don't I? Black guy rotating slowly.
The way you're like...
Welcome, everybody, to a sensational Sunday Roast. We have excellent guests with us this week. We have got Supertan. Would you like to introduce yourselves?
Hi. Do I have to do a proper introduction? Well, you didn't tell me how to do a proper introduction.
Before Alex joined, we were talking about those fingers. Those fingers tell me that heart is in there now, pumping away like a three-legged fucking foal.
I wonder if the sausages have, like, the sausage fingers have power.
They've got the power to keep his rings on, that's for sure. Put him
Not
in
allowed to destroy pens, which you can't handle. It just can't handle. And then there's that movement, isn't there? Go away.
Go away, pins.
Go away, pins.
Honestly.
It has happened before. There was the year of three kings in Germany in the 1870s.
Mm-hmm.
Actually happened. So the whole shebang. Yeah, could you imagine? Like, wow. That I think the public would actually crack. I think they would actually go spare if that happens. Like, and
ironically, again from Greek, Thanos' name comes from the Greek word thanatos, which means death.
Oh.
Ah, wow. That's a great factoid. That would reflect the character perfectly, to be honest.